be seated. Mr. Bickford-Smith, do you have anything to raise?
A brief point.
Yes.
I've spoken to my learned friend about this. On timings, we are still fine for timings, but the time estimate was for this witness to be concluded by 2:30 today, and I have mentioned to Mr. Setti that I think 3:30 is a more realistic estimate.
All right. Okay, but that won't pose any problem to the overall time?
No.
All right, thank you.
Because we have time to get rid of in the form of Mr. Mulvey.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bickford-Smith. Mr. Setti.
Your Honour, the defendant calls Mr. Rehan Sheikh.
Please state your name and residential address to the court.
My name is Rehan Muhammad Sheikh. I swear by Almighty Allah to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Please be seated. Respect our attention.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. Mr. Setti.
Mr. Sheikh, could I ask you to please state your full name and professional address?
Rehan Muhammad Sheikh. Currently it's main head office, II Chundrika Road, Standard Chartered Bank, Karachi, Pakistan.
Thank you. Could I ask you to turn in the bundle to page 7779? That's 7779.
I'm there.
We see there a witness statement bearing your name, and it comprises some 164 numbered paragraphs. Is that your signature which appears after paragraph 164 on page 7821?
It is my signature.
Is that the evidence which you wish to give to this court today?
Yes, please, with just a minor correction about my joining date with Standard American Express Bank, which was 1986 instead of 1984.
And which paragraph is that by reference to?
Let me just, did you say 777?
7779 was the start of your statement.
Yeah. It's on para 3. American Express, Pakistan, 1986.
Thank you.
And subject to any other clarification you may provide, Mr. Sheikh, are the contents of your statement true?
They are. Thank you.
If you remain there, there will be some further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. Mr. Bickford-Smith will have some questions for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford-Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Sheikh. Could I ask you please to turn to page 7792?
77?
92.
I'm there.
Now, at paragraph 52, you take up the issue of the feedback about Sahel Akbar, correct?
That's correct.
And at paragraph 54, you say second sentence, I was admittedly frustrated with the claimant for having created a difficult situation. And then over the page at 7793, you say, my primary concern was to try and diffuse the situation with a view to repairing relations between Mr. Akbar and the claimant, Mr. Long, and Mr. Groot and I eventually agreed to hand the matter over. When you say that your primary concern was to diffuse the situation with a view to repairing relations, that's not correct, is it, Mr. Sheikh?
Correct in what sense?
It's not true, is it?
It's true, because it's true.
You were not just frustrated by this feedback. You were in fact very angry about it, were you not, Mr. Shaker?
There's no reason to be angry. It's a professional opinion that was written, that was given in a professional manner. I read it. I thought that it was a bit, not the correct statement, and the mechanism that was adopted, and I wanted to bring it to light with the other senior people in the organization and take remedial action.
Page 2440 of the bundle, please. Now, this is an interview between Mr. Long and Mr. Bucket and Mr. Ayrton of the 13th of June 2019. I'm just putting you there to contextualise where I'm about to go to. So this is a June 2019 interview, as you see. You had a similar interview, correct?
That's correct.
Page 2456. The fourth box down talks about failure on my part between Shiraz to be on the same page. But then do you see this end of the second line? Rehan was, I would say, kind of apoplectic about it. From the very initial time he engaged me on it as a personal conduct issue relating to Shiraz, as opposed to processing the 7 areas of performance that were highlighted in having any discussion about whether there was merit or not to the comments. So from that moment, it kind of went to Rohan. That was just reaction. 2 questions arising from that. Do you accept that you were very angry when you saw this feedback?
I'm sorry, I need to read the paragraph, please. I'm on page 2,
4, 5,
6.
The bottom paragraph on that.
Bottom paragraph, it says SL, and
Yes,
the box.
It should be AL. That's a typographical error. It should be AL for Mr. Long.
Okay.
And the box starts, so failure on my part.
And you talk about the last 4 lines?
No, it's if you just read the first 4 lines, but you can read down as far as you wish to.
Who's Rohan?
That's you.
That's me, okay. I'm sorry, I can't make out what the context was, what Al was talking about here.
What he's talking about is your reaction to the 365's feedback that the claimant submitted about Mr. Akbar.
So as I said, I don't know in what context Adam said this, but I answered the question that I was not upset. It was a feedback given for one of my direct reports by using a bank prescribed channel. I felt that after reading it that the content was harsh. It was not a reflection of what the ground realities were. And they were, more importantly, there were no constructive feedback in terms of how, as we go forward, what could be done. So I can't really answer what Adam had said to in this regard.
Do you accept that immediately that you saw the 365 feedback, your view was that action needed to be taken against Mr. Mahmood?
Well, I'm not too clear what kind of action you're suggesting. My view is that it was given, as I said, on a prescribed channel that the bank has. As I mentioned, the content did not really reflect what what has been going on or what Mr. Akbar's capabilities were and his professional acumen was. And I felt that it needs to be escalated and addressed.
Page 1584. We see an email. We see at the bottom the 365 feedback, and then we see in the middle of the page, you receive an automated email from HR with the feedback. You then send Mr. Long an email on the 29th of August saying, attached email refers, unfortunately with RMT. Is that the regional management team?
That's correct.
Scheduled for tomorrow, followed by my overseas visit next few days. I would like to pick this up with you on my return next week. Thanks, Rahan. Then we see Mr. Long forwarding your email on to Mr. de Groot, and then we see Mr. de Groot's reply at the very top of 1584. This is the 31st of August 2018 at 12:22. Thanks. Indeed, Rahan does not appreciate how it was done. He apparently never heard from Shiraz and you about these concerns and wanted to discuss with me on Sunday. So both you and Mr. de Groot are at the regional management team meeting, correct?
I don't recall whether Mr. de Groot was present. It's if I say that I was there, it's quite a while ago.
But do you remember speaking to Mr. de Groot about this?
I don't recall or recollect.
Well, how else does he know that you were unhappy?
As I said, I did not read how it was done. If I spoke to him, it was a long time ago. I don't quite remember.
And if we go up the page, 1583, we see if we were at year end, which value rating would you propose for Shiraz? Personally, I would push for a D. Performance very good though. So this is the bank's rating system, which is a numerical system and also an alphabetical system. So you can be a 1A, or a 2B, a 3B, etc. Correct? So when he's referring to a D, he is referring to the second half of that rating, is he not?
I don't think this email is addressed to me, so it's probably addressed to who is addressed to. I don't know. It's a conversation happening between Adam and Manu and Mr. de Groot.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that question.
Well, you can answer questions, though, can't you, Mr. Sheikh, about how the bank's internal performance rating system works, correct?
That's correct. So
I put it to you simply that Mr. de Groot is immediately suggesting a lower performance rating for Mr. Mahmood off the back of this 365 feedback. Point number one. Is your position that you...
Mr. Bickford-Smith, what's the utility in asking this witness about communications between other parties to which he wasn't a party?
The second question is, I put it to you that you had suggested to Mr. de Groot that this should be reflected in the claimant's performance rating.
I don't recall having any such conversation with Mr. de Groot. We have a very transparent assessment process. Adam Long is the direct line manager. Mr. de Groot, through various levels on the hierarchy, is the senior most person. It's a conversation happening between the line manager and his line manager on the performance and the value rating. I'm one of the stakeholders that works with Mr. Shiraz, and I have my input, but it's a collective rating process. In this email, it doesn't reflect anything other than Mr. de Groot asking a question to Mr. Shiraz's line manager.
You say at page 7793, let's take this in terms. So 7792 paragraph 53, line 4, I realised immediately on receiving the feedback that it was going to cause a problem, and I felt it was important to warn Mr. Akbar about it. I recall Mr. Akbar was on annual leave, so I called him to explain what had happened. I told him that the claimant had given him some damaging and critical feedback. He should try not to react. He said he would look at the thing. So you have you've spoken to Mr. Akbar about this, correct?
I distinctly remember speaking to him. That's correct.
You've spoken to Mr. de Groot about this, correct?
I don't recall that conversation.
And in paragraph 54, you say that you, Mr. Long and Mr. de Groot had numerous discussions throughout the course of September 2018. That's the first sentence. Do you see that?
I'm reading, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to rush you, Mr. Chair. And at the very end of the paragraph, 7793, just on the last 2 lines,
Yeah.
Mr. de Groot and I eventually agreed to hand the matter over to HR to handle. Can I please ask you to turn to 1684?
1684.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Now again, this is another email that you are not party to, but I need to put it to you that you had told HR that you felt the feedback had been made in bad faith, correct?
That's correct. I recall, I think it was, what I recall is that when I picked this up with the line manager, he had advised me to pick this up with HR and let them know about the feedback, if I remember correctly. But I think that's probably what I recall. But this email, again, it's between. Do I need to read this email?
No,
Okay.
but you can read it. The reason I need to take you to it is that it's the foundation for the question. It's correct also that you had spoken with Mr. Akbar about Mr. Akbar raising a grievance about the feedback, correct?
So can you please repeat the question?
You had spoken to Mr. Akbar about Mr. Akbar raising a grievance against the claimant about the feedback, correct?
No, I had, as I mentioned, I had spoken to Mr. Akbar on the day I had received the feedback. I had spoken to Mr. Akbar, letting him know that a feedback is in your inbox, which is copied to me as a functional head. Please do not react to that feedback. And to that, Mr. Akbar had mentioned that he's on holiday and he's not seen it. And that's about all. And then probably when Mr. Akbar came back, that's when these conversations had started. Or I may have escalated it to Adam that this is the feedback that's come in my inbox.
And what you wanted was an investigation into the claimant's conduct in submitting this 365 feedback, correct?
It's not what I wanted, it's what the line manager had suggested, that we should, you should let HR know. And I think it was the line managers who had probably taken it to the next level. I don't recall having a conversation directly with HR suggesting that this feedback needs to be investigated. I don't quite recall, but
and 2921, this is the same, no, it's No, this is the second interview, so I should take you for good order to 2913.
Yes, please, I'm there.
This is the second interview with Mr. Long on the 23rd of July 2019.
What paragraph do you want me to read?
I want you to go to page 2921. And
2921.
2921,
Yes, please.
11 boxes down, the box beginning, so we've had multiple meetings.
This is in front of AL, which is a highlighted portion. Yeah.
I don't understand. Yes, on a point, I don't understand why it's highlighted, but yes, it's highlighted in my copy. I don't know if it's highlighted in anyone else's, but anyway. You should take it that the highlighting is an error, Mr. Sheikh, or at least not relevant. The line 4 and 5, we have a problem with names, but I just want to put this to you simply. Do you agree that Mr. de Groot, in the conversations you had in September about this feedback, was also strongly hostile to Mr. Mahmood for having raised the feedback?
I can't really make out from this paragraph or this statement. It was neither me who said anything like, what has been suggested here. I can't really put any context to the conversation that you're referring to.
Do you have any recollection of the conversations?
Can you repeat the question on the conversation, please?
Do you have any recollection of the conversations?
Conversation between?
Yourself, Mr. de Groot, and Mr. Long in
Regarding?
September, the 365 feedback.
As I said earlier, that when the feedback came, while Shiraz had said to me that he's going to give a feedback, the content of the feedback was not discussed or told to me. So when the feedback came, as I said, it was not in line with what I have said earlier. I don't want to please repeat myself. I may have had a conversation with line manager in terms of the content of the feedback. I don't quite recall what happened and what action Adam and Mr. de Groot may have taken, but subsequently, what I was told was Adam was also not happy with the channel on which the feedback was given, and obviously on the content of the message also, because there was no constructive feedback in terms of how the performance can be improved.
Was any investigation ever done into the substance of what Mr. Mahmood's 365 was saying? Did you, as Mr. Akbar's manager, say, well, this needs to be looked into in more detail?
I don't recall that.
Were you aware that HR had recommended that a peer review of the feedback be done?
I can't recall, and could you explain what a peer review means?
If you could turn to page 1696.
I'm not privy to these emails, so this is it's neither copied to me nor I'm part of these, so I cannot really comment on it.
But you see, you asked about a peer review, and this is what they talk about there, is it not?
No, as I said, you've explained to me what the peer review is, but me asking for a peer review or being aware of a peer review, I don't recall that.
Oh. What happened as regards Mr. Mahmood was that Mr. Long agreed with you and Mr. de Groot to reduce the claimant's rating and compensation, correct?
The rating process has an input, and I, being the key stakeholder, which was a partner, I have a say in the rating, both at the performance rating as well as the value rating. I don't quite recall when this whether there was a conversation that had happened, and at what stage a rating was either proposed or my input was taken. I don't quite recall if there's in a document. But what I'm saying is that it's a collective decision taken on the feedback by the key stakeholder, and if the stakeholder disagrees with the rating given by the line manager based on the feedback, that rating is reviewed. So in this case, if the rating was given by Mr. Long in consultation with their chain, then probably that rating held its ground based on the feedback that other stakeholders may have provided, including me.
Mr. Long told you in October or November that he was going to be reducing the claimant's rating and compensation to reflect the concerns you had about the 365 feedback having been given, correct?
The concerns were not just 365 feedback. The concerns were all throughout in terms of how a collaboration was working, how the working environment was between compliance and Global Islamic Bank. Rating is not just based on one incident. If the feedback basically covers a full 1 year's performance, quarterly, 6 monthly, annual performance, and as I said, I don't recollect or recall any specific conversation happening on that rating. And normally I do give feedback as a stakeholder for every employee, not only who are my direct reports, but also employees who are our business partners or our functional partners who are assigned to Islamic. In fact, it's not only who are assigned, but also 365 covers various feedbacks given to other people. So to answer your question is, I don't recall a specific conversation of changing rating at all.
Now, you've said that the interview notes of Mr. Long are not ones you can comment on, but I have to give you the opportunity to comment here on 2457.
So before we go to 2457, you said interview notes. Which interview notes are you referring
His
to?
interview with the I3 investigation team.
Oh, okay. Yeah, obviously. 2457. Okay.
And this is another answer. You can start on 2456. You'll find it's a very long answer. It's the same answer we were in earlier. 2457, about 7 lines down in the middle, you'll see a sentence beginning, it led in October/November.
Sorry, Councillor, if you're asking me to comment on a...
You don't have to comment on it, Mr. Sheikh. I'm just putting it to you.
So I'm not the one who said it. I'm not part of the interview. I'm not a privy to the background of the conversation. And I'm just by reading 4 lines, you're asking me to give my opinion.
Mr. Sheikh, what Council is doing is saying, here is a proposition. Is that proposition correct?
Can you
So
just
the proposition starts about line 7 or 8 with the words, it led in October, November, when we were having P3 discussions, and then again with Rohan, which is a reference to you, and Manu, and we had a discussion about feedback, and that was when I mentioned to Rohan that I was essentially reflecting this, as well as a few other areas of behaviour in Shiraz that was going to affect his P3. That's the proposition you
That's
want to
correct. And the additional proposition is I was going to address his COM, which should read comp, i.e. compensation, and I was going to adjust his values, that's the letter number in the rating system, and report it as a conduct issue in the P3 system. Do you accept that those propositions are correct?
Councillor, if you could give me 2 minutes, I'll
Yeah,
read the paragraph
I
now.
don't want to rush you, Mr. Sheikh, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor, what's the question now?
Do you accept the following proposition number 1? Do you accept that you had a conversation in the October or November with Mr. Long and Mr. de Groot about the 365 feedback and the rating that Mr. Mahmood was going to end up with?
So these are 2 different events. I don't know. The feedback conversation, as I mentioned, was soon after the feedback was given, and I escalated to the line manager. When the conversation happened about the annual rating, whether it's on values or whether it was performance, I don't recall, and when that discussion happened. As I said, it's a process the bank follows. Process starts sometime October of each year, when feedbacks are given, when ratings are given, when stakeholders give their feedback on each and every employee. Then the line manager gives a rating out. Because I'm in a senior position, normally the ratings of their employees assigned to a business are always discussed. If there is a difference of opinion, it is discussed and we collectively agree on that rating. So I don't quite really recall what conversation happened specifically on Mr. Mahmood's rating at that point in time. This is referring to more of what Sohail's feedback as given by Mr. Mahmood, what it was, what channel was used, how it was done. I don't think it's, and on the P3 rating, I'm sure conversations must have happened. Normally, as I said, you can pull out details of my feedback on Mr. Mahmood for that year. That should form the basis on which a rating would have been assigned, at least taken into account.
And you are Mr. Akbar's line manager, correct?
That's correct.
Did you reflect in his annual assessment the points made by Mr. Mahmood in his 365?
The normal feedback covers the performance vis-a-vis the objectives, things that have been done well, and then the development areas. I'm sure the feedback I might have given for that particular year, or year before, or year after, would have picked up certain development areas or certain strengths on any incumbent or Mr. Suhail Akbar in this particular case. As I said, I don't quite recall whether I took specific observations as were pointed out by Mr. Mahmood in his feedback, whether they were taken into account or not. If that feedback is there, I can, I don't quite recall.
What performance rating did you give Mr. Akbar in the 2017-2018 performance years?
I'm sorry, I don't recall. It's a while ago.
Are we talking about a 3C, a 4D? Do you have any, a 1A, a 2? You don't have any idea at all?
I don't recall.
And do you agree with the proposition that in his 365 feedback, the claimant had raised a series of valid performance concerns about Mr. Akbar?
The process is designed in a way that a feedback is given, and that feedback is there to assess the engagement, the competency, and the interaction that individuals have, whether it's department or individuals. So me taking on that's the whole idea of this feedback to come. As I said, not just Mr. Mahmood's feedback, there must have been multiple feedbacks given. I'm sure if you pull out the files, Ferdy, who was the regional chief operating officer, must have given a feedback on Suhail for that particular year. We encourage every employee to reach out, to ensure that across different, and obviously because we were running a global business, we were also encouraging feedbacks from other markets, other stakeholders to come, because all of us were looking at international businesses. So I'm sure a collective theme or a collective view must have been taken into account alongside my own view, because I work very closely with Suhail as my direct report, and those areas would definitely have been identified how to improve things better.
Can I take you to page 1581, please? Point number 3, beginning with the first sentence. Do you agree with the proposition that Islamic banking is somewhat removed from the mainstream of the bank as it does not fall into any defined client segment?
Islamic banking, the bank started to do Islamic banking in 1992-94. It is full-time. SADC was formed, I think, in 2003. I'm talking about GIB SADC, 2003-2004. we had our full license come in from the FSA sometime in 2009, 2010. This is a business that we run globally, and we are very proud that we are the only international bank in this space. It cannot be that it is somewhat, from the mainstream banking. I don't know, can't recall because I've not written this statement. It is quite embedded, very well embedded in the overall bank that we run. I can tell you, as a CEO, when I was here, we ensured that we embed it more by improving on the leverage model that we had, creating the governance structure around it, put a very strong control mechanism around it, and that's why it is now one of the, and has been before, one of the large businesses that we carry. It has a very strong oversight directly from the governance structure we have, which is led by the chairman, who is the chief executive for Africa and Middle East. I know myself that at various governance forums, various business forums, various regulatory forums and country forums, it's quite embedded. So when we say remove from somewhat mainstream, it is a product area, developing products for our clients which are in CCIB business and CPBB business alongside financial markets. It's a very small team of professional product managers. There is no other business as well embedded globally as the Islamic business. So I can't really say or agree with the mainstream, remove from the mainstream of the bank.
Do you agree that the COO function is a vital conduit between the Islamic banking business and the rest of the group?
Absolutely.
Do you agree with the proposition that since the establishment of a compliance function within Islamic banking, it is apparent that multiple group initiatives have not been and are not being implemented in Islamic banking effectively or at all as of August 2018? Do you agree with that or not?
When I took over Islamic banking on November 1st, 2015, compliance was a dual function managed by legal and compliance. It was me alongside Mr. Long and Mr. de Groot to ensure that we embed the compliance structure, the importance of strong governance and control, the regulatory oversight. A full-time compliance officer was suggested by me alongside Mr. Long and Mr. de Groot. We carved out a separate function for compliance. We agreed on collectively agreed on appointing a Band 4 officer entirely dedicated to the compliance function for Islamic. All throughout, previously also, there was a very clear oversight, and there were no issues either with the regulator or in the audits that we had internally or externally, where it was pointed out that regulatory or internal asks were not executed or implemented. Post Mr. Mahmood's arrival, there was a lot more focus and dedication in this area, and it just continued to improve. And more importantly, with Mr. Mahmood's help, the country's importance of country compliance officers, structures, regulatory asks, that all got further improved post 2015, 2016 till I was there 2020. So I think it has further improved rather than saying that well, obviously it's a dynamic world. We are now doing Islamic in more countries. The regulators are coming up with more regulations. It's moving. So there could be timing different. There would be issues about timing of implementation, but nothing that I can recall that was not executed or implemented.
You referred just in your answer now to audit. Can you go to the next paragraph? That says, an audit of Islamic banking, that's an internal audit, in September 2016 found inadequate engagement between IB and its partners, insufficient clarity of responsibilities and weaknesses in the execution of controls noted could be attributed to IB being a relatively small business. Were you aware of that audit, Mr. Sheikh?
I was aware of an audit that happened soon after I had joined, and the purpose of that audit is that before I had joined, there were a lot of question marks in terms of how we were running our Islamic business globally under the governance and control structures. The senior management, 2 or 3 senior managers had left the bank. So when I had been approached to take this job, I came with a very, very clear mandate to put a governance and control structure around it, to ensure that we embed the Islamic space in the global international markets. So that and plus making sure that from a training and headcount, we have the right people. Now, this particular audit, I don't recall what all it identified, but obviously engagement is one thing that we've been working on all throughout my 5 years as CEO, and that's why the credit that was given between the period 2015 to 2020 and even now is that Islamic is more embedded. The roles and responsibilities are well defined. We have a legal framework, we have a compliance framework, not only just at GIB level, but also at each country's level. So audits are always good in terms of taking a stock of things, and I'm sure they must have pointed out, and we must have actioned on those.
2 points. First, you say you took over. You took over from Mr. Afaq Khan, correct?
That's correct.
He is also a Pakistani, correct?
That's correct.
Second, you mentioned the audit. We should take you to this. Page 903, please. And to assist you at 906, you will see the list of addressees of this, which includes, you can see all the people there. So I put it to you that you were one of the addressees of this audit.
Yes, I am, and also the top management of the bank.
And so in terms of the top management of the bank, do you want to expand on that at all?
Let me just see. This is Sarla Al-Gama. Okay. What is the date of the audit, please?
It says, if you look up, date issued 1st
September 2016. Yeah. Okay. What page do I need to go, please?
906 was the list of addressees.
Yes, please.
You've looked at that. Do you have anything more to say about that? The addressees.
Well, obviously it's addressed to Mr. Kaushal, it's addressed to myself and Sohail, and most of the management, including the head of audit Alison McFadden. Yes, please.
Page 90. Page 903, you'll see opinion on the control environment, and then you will see the last paragraph of that section on page 903, about 2/3 of the way down the page. It says inadequate engagement with IB and its partners, insufficient clarity of responsibilities and weaknesses in the execution of controls noted could be attributed to IB being a relatively small business. Proposition 1, do you agree that as of the 1st of September 2016 there was inadequate engagement between IB and its partners?
First of all, I don't have to agree. This is an opinion of the third line, which is the audit function. This is what they saw. This is what they reviewed. This is what they've stated. My job is to have a conversation in terms of the action plans as highlighted and to take them forward, so that the next time around, when they come, based on their assessment, what work we've done, to improve on those observations. So in this, if it's saying relatively small business, 3% of the total bank revenues, one must appreciate that 3% of the total revenues is a number, but it creates a differentiation for us from the kind of product and business that we run globally. So while the number could be small, or 3%, but the proposition or the profile of the bank in the Islamic space is huge, and that's why we have continued to remain this business since 2003 and opened up new markets where Islamic is a very, very strong proposition. So Council, just to answer your question, audits identify the people, the departments who get audited, take those recommendations, put them in an action plan, and move on those recommendations. So I'm sure the auditors have identified that insufficient clarity of responsibilities and weaknesses. Mind you, 2015 saw a major, late 2015 also saw a major change in terms of new CEO. Mr. Akbar also moved from Malaysia, had moved earlier in 2015, if I don't recollect, as a COO for Islamic. We had put a new organizational structure to ensure that any weaknesses get properly addressed.
Do you agree that there was insufficient clarity of the responsibilities and weaknesses in the execution of controls? From your own experience and observation, do you agree with that?
I wouldn't say weakness, but I would say it required more engagement, it required more accountabilities and ownership with the leverage model, a lot more structured conversations that had to happen. The audit did not identify, or we did not have any reprimands from the regulators or from audit rating as a failed audit. So these are, that's the whole idea of the new management setup, was to address those issues and go forward with that.
As a specific point, at the bottom of page 903, you see the statement of fact that the ORF has not been ruled out for IB. The original deadline of March 2016 had been missed. It's currently being tracked, due to be implemented, Q416, and it said that this is critical to improving the control environment, correct?
Well, if it says that the deadline was missed, it was missed. But it also should say what risk issues got highlighted or missed out because of non-implementation of ORF. ORF was a global control framework that was being implemented. Why Islamic was missed out? I think that's what we worked on, to ensure that we embed the operational framework in the Islamic structures. So I don't quite recall what happened in 2016 in this paragraph that's been missed out, but for sure I do recall that the requisite framework was implemented, at the requisite forums, representation with the COO was there, and things fell in place if they had been missed out.
Do you agree that as of August 2018, the ORF was still not completely in place?
I'm sure there must be, given the control, the focus on control and governance that we had in Islamic, given that we were embedded as part of all senior risk forums, both at the regional and at the global level, a delay or non-implementation of ORF or certain aspects must have been clearly identified, highlighted, risk rated, and with an action plan to close them. So in isolation, I can't say why at this here, something which happened probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, as to what the reasons were, why they were at a delay, and what, more importantly, what risk issues got missed out in this process.
Page 7784. You have spoken, this is your witness statement, you have spoken about rejoining the bank. You say here you were tasked with reshaping the business to improve performance and adherence to the bank's values.
Paragraph, please.
Paragraph 26.
Thank you.
7784, paragraph 26. What values are you talking about?
One of the biggest things that I felt when I had joined the bank, that there was a gap in terms of collaboration, in terms of appreciation, in terms of understanding, in terms of human resource development, and I felt that one of the and because my predecessor was the only CEO who had remained with the bank for almost 10, 11 years, and the people, senior people, had remained all throughout, because it's a specialized area and people only come and join Islamic because they don't really want to do anything else, because of the faith and their focus. I felt that when I talk about bank values in terms of more of collaboration, appreciation, human development, that I felt was more work had to be done in this regard. And as we went along in terms of not only working on those performance-related areas, we also worked on the values where a lot more interaction and collaboration was promoted. So maybe I was probably referring to here more on the values aspect.
With regards to the appointment of a compliance officer, that's covered at paragraphs 27 of your statement. Now, paragraph 27 runs 7784 to 7785, and then in paragraph 28. Put it to you that specifically what happened was that you appreciated that the unit needed more compliance resource. Because at that time Mr. Vaselli was doing both compliance and legal, correct?
That's correct.
And you asked Mr. de Groot for more resource, and that was agreed in principle, correct? And
That's
then, a job description was done up. Did you have any involvement in the job description, or was this something dealt with by HR, Mr. Long, Mr. Groot? If you have no recollection, you have no recollection.
I have no recollection whether I was involved. These are subject matter experts. These are specialized areas, so I may have looked at it. I presume Mr. Veseli's job or was his description was taken and drafted, so I don't quite recall whether I was involved.
Now, you discuss in paragraphs 11 and following of your witness statement, this is at 7781.
7781.
7781, paragraph 11. You talk about Islamic banking. And at paragraph 7782, sorry, page 7782, paragraph 16, you say that if an Islamic banking service product or transaction is sold or executed subsequently found to have breached Sharia principles, any interest or profit generated must be given to charity. You then say neither the bank nor GIB benefit from any non-compliance with Sharia. So the first sentence is correct as a matter of practice, but can you give any examples of the bank ever doing this? Ever saying this is a non-compliant transaction and therefore we're going to give the proceeds to charity? Can you give any examples from your experience of that ever happening?
Councillor, we operate in a banking environment where transactions are booked. More specifically, for our Global Islamic Bank, we have transactions both at the CCI corporate bank level and also the retail level. These transactions are booked by operating departments. There are times that the transactions are not booked in line with the underlying operating procedures, which have in the past been picked up by the audits or by the operating department themselves. It is reviewed, and I'm aware of a large number of transactions in my career since I've been associated with Islamic banking that were not in accordance with the Sharia guidelines as prescribed by the supervisory Sharia body, and amounts were given out in charity. These were both in these have happened in almost all our key areas where we operate, and yes, I am aware, and this even happens even today, not just when I was the CEO for Islamic. My current position where I am, it is a huge Islamic business that we run, and operating departments, or there are incidents where these have been highlighted and charity is given out.
You say in the second sentence, neither the bank nor GIB benefit from any non-compliance with Sharia. Now, do you not accept that within GIB there are the normal pressures you see in a bank to get transactions approved and agreed, correct?
GIB is a global Islamic banking business. Transactions are actually done in countries. Countries originate clients with Islamic banking facilities that they want to utilize. We ensure that the products that we offer in countries are in accordance with the guidelines of the regulatory guidelines as well as the Sharia guidelines. countries have their own budget, country have their own turnaround times, country have their own processes that they follow. We at Global Islamic Bank provide support to countries. There are functional heads who are responsible for different businesses. There are control areas who have an oversight on the countries. In a banking environment, there will always be timelines, client timelines, turnaround timelines that we have to follow. There are pressures of concluding those transactions within those timelines. It's a normal BAU business that we run, no different to a conventional business or an Islamic business.
You've referred to the leverage model. Let's go through this. The Islamic Bank operates in covers 31 markets, correct?
If you're quoting that number, but Islamic banking is probably 31 countries where we have presence or non-presence, but in countries where an Islamic transactions gets originated, we're also present in those countries, like we do business with those.
So you
might not have presence or non-presence,
So there's a difference between booking centres and non-booking centres,
That's
correct?
Yeah.
So you have it's either 15 or 16 booking centres and 15 or 16 non-booking centres, something like that. Would you agree?
I presume that's the number. Correct.
Now, you refer to, in paragraph 17, the UAE, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Pakistan. Those are all countries with, you would agree, a developed Islamic banking industry, correct?
Well, we have Saudi, we have Egypt, we have Iran, we have Sudan, we have a lot of, when you say GIB offers, well, you're talking about GIB offers Islamic banking in these, yes, these are developed markets. Well, we also have a big business in Saudi, which is now, we have a full-time presence, but these are our core markets.
And it's also the case that you have booking centres in other places, for example, in Jersey, correct?
I don't know whether we do mortgages Islamic out of Jersey or not, but when I was there, I don't know whether Jersey was I don't quite recall whether it was a booking centre.
Do you agree that it is unrealistic to expect the local compliance functions in all 31 markets to be familiar with Sharia principles?
That's why we've got Sharia teams embedded in the leverage model in those countries. The GIB is only providing an oversight. The accountability rests with the resident Sharia representatives in those countries. We are fortunate to have 4 or 5 global boards, plus the regulatory environment. We have a very clear oversight in these countries.
Now, the leverage model means that the delivery mechanism for the product or service is not GIB, correct? It's the unit or the local country, correct?
As I mentioned, GIB are product specialists sitting in DIFC here in Dubai, which is our head office. And leverage model refers to the countries where we have conventional business models, operating models, from where we offer our Islamic banking facilities. So that's what we call as a leverage model. In that way, sorry, Councillor, I'll just take one more minute. In that way, what we have is that we have people on the ground executing who are trained in these Islamic products, who are able to execute in line with the processes that get designed, and also complete accountability of the country in execution of those transactions. So that's what leverage model is.
And at a compliance level, country compliance is responsible for ensuring that the offering of the products and services are in line with country regulations, correct?
The businesses and functions are responsible to ensure. Compliance has an oversight to ensure that when because every product gets a compliance sign-off in line with the regulatory ask, in line with the product program ask. Once implemented, compliance as a second line has an oversight in terms of execution in line with the agreed processes as well as the regulatory asks.
In terms of agreed processes, global heads of compliance have to create policies and provide guidance and support for the country to follow in relation to the Islamic business, correct?
I don't think so, that's correct. It's the country's responsibility based on the products that they're offering to put up products to their Sharia boards, Sharia supervisory committees for approvals, and it is endorsed by the compliance division that it is in line with the regulatory asks. Similarly, there are multiple signatories to the product program, which has legal, which has compliance, which has operations, which has technology. So everybody takes responsibility, country responsibility, in terms of execution. Where GIB comes in, because it has a very clear oversight on these activities that we do, they are involved, but not on a day-to-day basis.
Now, in terms of accountability, I suggest to you that there is a significant potential weakness in this system because you are relying on local compliance teams to sign off products they simply, in many cases, have no real understanding of, correct?
Absolutely incorrect. They are the subject matters on the ground in the country. Who would know? Anybody sitting in Dubai would not know what the compliance asks are, what the product nuances are, what the structures are, what is the competition offering. The GIB is there to, the GIB management team is there to have an oversight and facilitate. And that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go have a clear line of sight on what the activities are going on and take a responsibility in terms of the product offerings and what gets executed. But to answer your question, they have more knowledge about the regulatory asks and what needs to get approved or executed.
Well, first of all, it's not the case that every country has a Sharia board. Singapore, for example, does that have a Sharia board?
No, it doesn't, and that's why we do not have a full-time presence in, because that's why we only probably have a more of capital market business that we do out of Singapore or in some of the other jurisdictions. Where we have a full-time offering on the retail and corporate bank side, and these 4 or 5 boards have only come in post my coming on. We only used to have 2 boards, Malaysia, where we have a subsidiary, and the GIB board. It's only when UAE came up with the framework and the Islamic banking governance. Similarly, Pakistan. I think when I came in, Pakistan board was already there. So Pakistan had the governance framework. Then we have Brunei, I think we have now, 3 or 4 boards now.
Now, there should hopefully be a loose document somewhere in your area. Have you got one?
This one?
That's the one. It should have page numbers in the bottom right, starting with 8837. Does it?
I do have it.
Now, if I could ask you to turn to 8839, it's the slide reading Islamic Banking WB Compliance Monitoring Report. It's either 39 or 40.
8839?
Yes,
Yes,
it should says Islamic Banking WB Compliance Monitoring Review Report. This is a document from July 2013. Do you see that?
I have it.
And you see here the 3rd paragraph. The net of well, you can. I want you to have the opportunity to read the full box. the position is,
Yes, please.
do you agree with the proposition that people are, because of this structure, people are signing off products that they don't really know very much about?
As of today, I completely disagree with this statement. This is back in 2013. Post 2015, if there were any such views, today, as I said, Islamic is more embedded in the PGCs. The sign-offs of all stakeholders are there. What we did between 2015 and 2020, when I was there, we made Islamic as part of the one document of submission of a product. So there's no separate Islamic, there's no separate conventional. It's one product program. So that, and when you say you don't have an oversight, if anybody is reading a document and does not want to read it in its totality, that's the individual's, issue, and the bank, I'm sure, must have taken notice of it. But post 20, at least when I was there, this worked very seamlessly. We used to have an annual trip going to Singapore, meeting all the PGC members. We had 12 or 14 global Islamic champions, which were part of how we embedded Islamic. So this may have been an observation in 2013, but today, or post 2015, Islamic is as embedded as any other product offering that we have across the bank in a similar way.
Page 7782, paragraph 15, you say that financial regulators have historically adopted a light touch approach to Islamic banking regulation. This is paragraph 15. Financial regulators have historically adopted a light touch approach to Islamic banking regulation compared with conventional banking. Islamic bankers have instead been trusted not to deviate from the fundamental principles of the Quran while they are conducting business. Now, suggest to you, do you agree that there is in fact long-standing and developed regulation of Islamic banking as follows? For example, in Egypt, there have been regulations since 1963, which were supplemented in 1981. Do you agree with that?
I don't recall, and I'm not aware of those dates, but Egypt is one example, but there are where they're working on a framework. That's what I recall.
Mr. Bickford-Smith, we're spending a lot of time on this. I just wonder where it fits into the case.
Yes.
I'm not conducting a Royal Commission of Inquiry into Islamic banking.
I agree.
There's been no objection, so I'm not stopping you. But there is a law of diminishing returns.
Yes,
about
I
how many
am
questions
actually.
we can ask about Islamic banking.
Yes, I am actually at the end of this bit. But I think, can I just go to the proposition that I need to put to you, Mr. Sheikh. You knew, as of the date the claimant arrived in the Global Islamic Banking Unit, that there was a lot of work which needed to be done, point number one, to bring the unit into proper compliance. Do you agree or disagree with that?
The strategy was to improve on things that had already been done. The groundwork was already there. It was a strategy that we agreed in the bank to take Islamic to the next level. In order to take it to the next level, there were certain building blocks that had to happen. And one of that was to have an independent governance and compliance structure and a responsibility resting with a senior officer within the GIB space. So I won't agree with the statement that there were gaps or there were issues, but it was more to do, how do we do it in a much more structured way? So I did that initially with the legal department, exactly the same thing. And then, based on the experience and the feedback and how we were successful, when we agreed to have a separate compliance function, the intention was to follow suit. So, and that's what we've continued over the last 7, 8, 9 years.
And when the claimant joined, you were very enthusiastic about the work he was doing, weren't you?
I did not know him when he had joined. I had only met him for half an hour, 45
No.
minutes.
Okay, sorry. 4745, please. This is your feedback on the claimant in...
So just a second, please. 4745. Sorry.
This is the year-end 2017.
Sorry, how do I delete these? 4745.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
This is year to end 31st December 17. This is your feedback here. He's a very welcome addition to the Sadiq team. In a short period of time, he's done a lot to further embed Islamic banking from a risk control and governance perspective, gradually gliding into a role of being an ambassador for IB in 2017. Some of the work done will further strengthen the compliance function. And then you say he quietly goes about his business but gets the job done with his persuasive and well-grounded demeanour. So there was no concern raised by you at that stage about the claimant's manner or approach, was there?
If it says, I stand by what I wrote.
And the position that arose after this was that when the claimant started to work through issues, he started to raise issues that were awkward for the unit, didn't he?
I don't quite understand the word awkward. As a compliance officer, he's independently has a very clear responsibility to see whether the bank is operating in a certain compliance framework. If he brought issues which were not in sync with the internal, external policies of the bank, that's what he was there for, and he brought those up. And as a management team, both within GIB, at the senior level, we embraced those observations, we took corrective actions. If they were supposed to be a debate, we debated those. We implemented things which we could. We did not. We debated and probably let go of certain observations which he probably might not have had the knowledge, which after conversations we did. So I don't think there was an awkward moment in terms of, and if it was, the conversations were, done in a professional way.
At paragraph 21 of your statement, you say that the Sharia department...
Sorry, I go back to the document?
7783.
7783.
Paragraph 21.
Yes, please.
You say that the Sharia department performs a purely advisory role. That isn't correct, is it? Mr. Sheikh, the Sharia department does have, in practice, the ability to approve transactions, does it not?
They only have the ability to approve what has been delegated to them by the Sharia Supervisory Committee. And what I recall, these are only minor modifications or adjustments in a program or in a product or certifications already approved by the Sharia Supervisory Committee. Mr. Mubin does not have the authority to rewrite fatwas or rewrite product programs. They only work within the delegation, and these could be only probably minor amendments.
5245 044-2021.
Yes, please.
So we have the position that all structured transactions, i.e. non-standard, have a written approval from SSC or head of Sharia. Then we have at the next paragraph, each product and service, or in the case of structured finance, each transaction must be approved by the SSC. So the position was this, was it not? It was not the case that every transaction the bank entered into would go before the SSC, correct?
When you say every transaction, normally we approve products, we approve structures, and if those transactions have to fall within those structures, within those products that we approve, and if there are transactions from our clients which are out of line or out of the ambit of those approvals, then we also put one-off transactions to the Sharia Supervisory Committee. So,
wasn't it the case that the person who was left to decide whether or not something needed to go before the SSC was Mr. Mubin?
Mr. Mubin was there to ensure that the products or asks from the businesses are in line with the overall Sharia requirements. He would put up a document, he would put up a submission so the Sharia board is entirely aware, nothing gets missed out, but he had no authority to approve anything, from a transaction or a product perspective.
Right. Put it to you, there's a distinction between approving a product, yeah? So the bank comes up with a new product, and approving a transaction, correct?
As I said, Mr. Mubin does not have the authority to either approve a product or approve a transaction. He can, within, as I mentioned earlier, Councillor, that he can actually deviate if in a transaction or in a product, if the nature is minimal, does not really alter the Sharia fatwa in a manageable, in a very drastic way, and obviously entirely in line with what has been delegated to him by the Sharia Supervisory Board.
Put it to you that as a matter of practicality, he did have the authority to approve transactions, and that the nature of that authority was that it was his decision whether a deviation from something which had previously been approved by the SCC needed to go back to the SCC or not, correct?
I don't think that's correct in terms of the his roles and responsibility, and the delegation that he enjoyed did not give him that flexibility that he could approve a transaction unilaterally on his own.
And the position was that Mr. Mubin was occasionally pressured by the business to approve things, correct?
Absolutely incorrect.
So, as of the 1st of May 2018, this is page 2157. The group head of Sharia's second paragraph, the group head of Sharia's view was that he had on occasion felt pressured by the business, but not to the extent that he'd put forward anything to the Sharia board, as had he done so, the Sharia board, which was independent, would have rejected it. put it to you, that is a correct account of the position, namely...
That's Mr. Shiraz's view, and he's written to Mr. Long. And if there were issues like these that were there, then it is the Sharia resident Sharia's responsibility to raise it to the management of the bank in Malaysia that such a practice is being adopted, or raise it to at my level, because I was also on the board of Malaysia Sharia Sadiq board. I used to go there almost every month, 2 months. This never came to my knowledge, nor anybody from the Sharia board or in Malaysia or the management ever brought this to my notice.
Well, you've dealt with both. We have two separate things. We have Mr. Mubin, and then we have the head of Sharia in Malaysia. You've dealt with both of the issues, so I won't put it to you. But for the record, I should say that we also see here recorded concerns by the head of Sharia in Malaysia. That's what you were just addressing in your answer, correct?
That's correct.
Page 255.
But let me just clarify. As I said, there could be instances where the businesses are asking for certain amendments, the time that it takes to make those amendments, what the submission that is required to be put forth for the Sharia to be approved, all these things at that point in time. What was the context that Mr. Mubin or this, I don't know who it was at that point in time, this gentleman brought to Mr. Mahmood's notice. But the good thing is that it was brought to Mr. Mahmood's notice. So that means the system worked. So if Sharia felt that they are being pressurized or what, Mr. Mahmood, as an independent compliance head, was taken into confidence. So I think the bank encourages, and that's the whole idea, the bank encourages for people in a very transparent manner to bring up these issues. And then it was Mr. Mahmood who would have spoken to me or would have said, look, this is what's going on. We really need to address these issues because maybe businesses are not, or functions are not, in sync with what the asks are.
At page 7788.
7788.
Paragraph 40 of your statement. You say at the end, the Sharia reporting line was therefore a theoretical conflict of interest which had never actually materialised and was very unlikely ever to materialise. Put it to you, the examples we've just seen show that this was not a theoretical issue, was it?
We discussed quite a few things. First, we saw that they were pressurized to approve transactions. They could have been pressurized, but were the transactions approved? I don't know. What happened? It's Mr. Mubin saying that I've been told, but if what? Sorry, sir. If Mr. Mubin is saying that he did approve a transaction under the pressure of the business, I think there are enough checks and balances within our own setup that such things get picked up.
This is the point I want to put to you, Mr. Sheikh. It would be extraordinary for Mr. Mubin or for local compliance Sharia officers anywhere in the bank to say, I have approved a transaction which was not Sharia compliant. I mean, it's just not something they're going to do, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And that this conflict only materialises, only becomes an actual conflict when that happens.
Now you're talking about conflict of Sharia line reporting into me, or Sharia doing things which the businesses are pressurizing him. What is the, because
let's go to 255.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Beckford-Smith, you've got time for a break, whenever it's convenient. But I must say, I made it clear last week, I don't see it as any part of my function to decide whether the Sharia conflict of interest was real or potential or theoretical. It's just not my job.
I I agree with that, Your Honour. The difficulty that I face is that the case the bank is bringing is that Mr. Mahmood was wrong about this issue, that he was obsessed by it, that their response was...
That's not my understanding. The bank's case, as I understand it, is that there was a credible argument to the extent raised by Mr. Mahmood. The problem was the manner in which he put it. And the bank's case on that is obviously influenced by the fact that the argument was ultimately accepted and the change was made. So I just don't see why we're spending all this time on whether or not there was an actual or potential conflict of interest. Mr. Setti, have I got that right?
Your Honour, I should raise at this juncture, I've been, I didn't want to interrupt my learned friend's flow in cross-examination, but as Your Honour has observed, I've not objected during the course of his cross-examination. I've assiduously not objected. But I do have some observations I think at this juncture I should raise, and this will not be breaking his flow. We have concerns, I certainly have concerns about the relevance of lengthy lines. If they weren't lengthy, I wouldn't, but lengthy lines of cross-examination, the relevance of those to the triable issues that Your Honour has to determine, both of fact and law. As Your Honour has observed, this is not a general inquiry into the defendant's Sharia business operation. It's not an inquiry into the rights and wrongs of views held about conflicts of interest, whether actual or potential. And one also has to ask, what is the... we also observe on this side of the room that there have been lengthy lines of cross-examination asking witnesses who have nothing to do and had no involvement in the relevant communications. But I will take that lightly. But witnesses can't really give much direct evidence on those matters. So if the reason why my learned friend needed an extra hour in cross-examination of this witness today was to be able to advance questioning along the lines he has done for most of this morning, then I do have serious reservations about relevance, about proportionality, and about whether the real purpose of doing so, therefore, is just for some purely prejudicial effect. Because if that is the case, and there is no relevance and no proportionate aspect to it, then I have to take serious objection.
Well, thank you for that. But am I right in... is the bank's position in relation to the conflict of interest as I put to Mr. Bickford?
Precisely.
Yes, all right.
Well, I do have to say that this is not the way that I understood the bank's case to be. I mean, I think this. I'm very grateful for this exchange, because my understanding is that the bank's case. I mean, Mr. Long's evidence. I'm not going to go through what he said in testimony, but his case was that the claimant was simply wrong on there being a conflict. He had failed to distinguish between a theoretical and an actual conflict.
Well, that's not what I understood Mr. Long's evidence
well,
to be. Mr. Long didn't say the claimant was wrong. Mr. Long, like this witness, not so like this witness, Mr. Long drew a distinction between an actual and a potential conflict of interest, but he accepted that there was substance in the point made by Mr. Mahmood.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm not going to continue with that line of cross-examination. I'd already, in any event, finished it anyway.
Yes, right.
And Your Honour, can I just add that that's always been our case. You didn't have to wait to hear Mr. Long give evidence we cross-examined about. Our pleaded case is exactly that.
Well, Mr. Bickford-Smith, I'm not going to stop you, but I think there is force in what Mr.
No,
says.
I mean, my position is very simple. I do have to simply say that, for example, in this witness statement alone, it's spread out in multiple places, which is one of the
But
things.
just because it's in his witness statement doesn't mean you have to cross-examine on it.
Right. Well,
You only need to cross-examine on it if it's relevant to an issue in the
Okay.
case. This is a discrimination case.
yes, I agree.
It's not a case about the way in which Islamic banking was conducted.
But Your Honour will apprehend that my concern is that if I don't challenge on a paragraph of witness statement, it said, oh, well, the witness isn't challenged on this, and that's the concern I have.
Well, but then you simply say, well, it's not relevant.
Yes, okay. Well, I'll take that position, Your Honour. I'm grateful we've in any event covered.
All right, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes, and no more than 10 minutes. Now, Mr. Sheikh, during the breaks in these proceedings, you're not to talk to anybody about your witness and about your evidence, and that includes the legal team for the bank. So just mind your own business if you can for the 10 minutes, and we'll resume back here in 10 minutes. All right, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes. Be seated, please.
7785, please, Mr. Sheikh. You say at 7785 to 7786, paragraph 30 we're looking at here. You say that you asked the claimant to prepare an equivalent compliance framework and that it was your initiative to create a compliance framework. I put it to you that that's incorrect. This was not your initiative, was it?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
You say that it was my initiative to create a compliance framework, not the claimant's. I put it to you that you're mistaken in that evidence, that this was, in fact, something that the claimant and his line manager, Mr. Long, advanced.
It was my initiative. It could have been Mr. Long's initiative also, but it was something that, as I mentioned earlier, we had done that for our legal framework, and it was my intention that we should also have it for compliance. I don't quite recall whether Mr. Long already had that idea or not, but this is how it came out.
Paragraph 31, you say the claimant prepared a draft of the framework and circulated on the 4th of November 2018.
I don't recall the dates, but he was assigned to do that, so he must, Mr. Mahmood must have followed that process.
And you then refer to emails at 1829, in paragraph 32, 33, you refer to emails at page 1829. If we could go to the one at 1829, please. That's an email of November the 27th, 2018.
Yes, please, I'm there.
So that's I'm taking that document to you for its date because this is a date in 2018. But if we go to your statement at paragraph 35, at the end of that, you'll see he then communicated this feedback to the claimant by email dated 24th December 2017. That's at 1131.
Should I go on 1131 now?
Yes. It's a very simple point, Mr. Sheikh. This is 11 months before the previous email, isn't it?
I'm sorry, what's the question? Mr. Mahmood was asked to put a framework together. It took a while for Mr. Mahmood to put up the framework. And then what is the question about the dates?
The point I'm putting to you is that you've referred at paragraph 31 to an email exchange in November 2018. Yes?
Well, the email that I read was, it was Mr. Alessandro's email, which referred to the framework. Then my email mentioned that please coordinate with Mr. Sohail Akbar, and I don't know whether it said other members of the GIB team or not. I have to go back to the email. And to make sure that the framework is good to go.
Yes, but that email exchange was in November 2018, whereas the claimant's circulation of the framework was in December 2017, wasn't it? So you can't, in November 2018, have been telling him to circulate for approval a document he'd in fact circulated in December 2017, can you?
I was responding to Mr. Alessandro's email. Can you just remind me of that number for that email so that I know what was that? That email 2018 email that you're referring to?
1829.
So I'm responding to that email the same day, November 27th, which says from Mr. Mahmood, addressed to me, attaches Alessandro's confirmation regarding Sharia risk contained in the compliance risk framework. Based upon, I will proceed to find the Sharia risk type with group and commence the work that will require to embed the new risk type. It's a different issue. We're talking about a risk framework, and this refers to probably the conflict of interest aspect about or something. Sharia risk contained in the compliance risk framework. What are we referring to, about the framework, or we?
You say in paragraph 34, line 8, I was surprised and frustrated that the claimant had sent a draft of the framework to Mr. Fanucci and Mr. Gilbert before finalising with me and the other members of GIB management, which I had expressly asked him to do on the 27th of November 2018. But that is 11 months after he has circulated this framework document, is it not?
So I don't quite recall the dates. Obviously, if I was made aware of the fact that now we're talking about the framework, yeah? We're talking about compliance framework overseeing GIB global business. So if I was made aware of the fact, whenever it was, I don't quite recall whether it couldn't have been that it's taken me 1 year to respond to an email, but if it was brought to my attention that the framework had been circulated to Mr. Gilbert and the other gentleman, Mr. Fanucci, without having a conversation around that within the GIB team or stakeholders, I was referring to that fact that because GIB team is responsible for this execution on the framework, they'll be involved in the day-to-day business, so their consent or their opinions or their buy-in is important before it gets circulated to Mr. Fanucci or anybody outside the GIB offices.
It is incorrect to say that the claimant circulating the document to Mr. Fanucci and Mr. Gilbert was contrary to an express instruction you had given by email, correct?
I had not given any instructions to Mr. Mahmood to send it to Mr. Fanucci. We had agreed that Mr. Mahmood will draft a framework. When such a framework is drafted, just like we did for legal, just like we do for a lot of other things, the key stakeholders are taken into confidence, their opinions are sought, the document comes out as this is a document that we feel, if there are difference of opinions, they get spelled out, and then we escalate it to the requisite to one level up or wherever it's supposed to be to get their buy-in. So
put it to you
this is probably what is being
put it to you that the emails you refer to in paragraphs 31, 32 and 33 of your witness statement are irrelevant to the circulation by the claimant in December 2017 of the Global Risk Compliance Framework. Do you agree?
Can you tell me what my statement number was so I can go back to the statement?
7786.
7786.
These are simply irrelevant to this issue, are they not?
Just a second, please. And paragraphs?
31 to 33. Put it to you very simply, Mr. Sheikh. What your evidence is that in breach of an express instruction by you, the claimant circulated this framework document. But that evidence is wrong, isn't it? Because
I don't know what specific instructions you're referring to.
The one that you are referring to in paragraph 33 of your witness statement, and which you refer back to in paragraph 34 of your witness statement when you say I was...
Currently coordinate primarily with Sohail and others members of SADC management team to ensure that all is in line with the underlying us. Now, that is what I just mentioned, that a document gets circulated, get prepared not unilaterally. You can prepare a draft, but you have to have a buy-in of all the key stakeholders. So I'm referring to that in this.
But that email is from 11 months after he circulates the framework.
My statement doesn't say what dates there are.
Well,
And
go
it says
to
page 1829. Can I
okay,
please
go to
back?
1829.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Sheikh, you understand clearly the dates of these emails, but you are still not admitting that your statement is obviously wrong about these things, isn't it?
I'm not in any way avoiding the question. I'm just trying to understand the relation between the emails that you're referring to, which is 1 year old, November 27th, and then my statement. Now my email says, thanks Shiraz, what is he referring to? Attached please is Alessandro's confirmation regarding Sharia risk contained in the compliance risk framework. Okay. Based this, I will proceed with finalizing the Sharia type. They're two different things. This is Sharia risk contained. So Mr. Mahmood pointed out that there is a reporting line, has a Sharia reporting line, has a potential a conflict of interest, and I think probably this email is referring to that. And the email that the statement that I'm referring to is that he needs to have a coordinated effort to finalize the framework. Can I just see the below email of Mr. Vasili? Here you go. Thank you for your time. As discussed, Attach Islamic banking related risk compliance framework. Compliance with owner to ensure that legal consistent with the ATA's business handling risk framework. This is more of an enterprise risk management and Sharia risks embedded into the framework.
Well, I think the witness, out of fairness, should be taken to page 1132, shouldn't he?
I've got it up on my screen. I'm waiting for him to finish the answer. Can you please go to page 1132?
I'm aware of this mail.
Look at the date, Mr.
December 7th, 2017.
Now, go to paragraph 34 of your statement.
Okay. So Mr. Mahmood is writing to me on 17, saying here is a draft, which he sent to Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Fanucci. Then I go 7786 and 32.
Go to paragraph 34.
Which is 1829. The way I read it, and I'm trying to recollect, is that one is the framework. One probably he's referring to finalizing the Sharia risk type.
Well, Mr. Sheikh, just look at your statement.
Yes, please.
It's got page 34, paragraph 34. On 7 December 2018, the claimant sent an email to me, Mr. Akbar, Mr. Vasili, advising that it had been sent. Now, we've just looked at page 1132. That was sent on the 7th of December 2017, wasn't it? So your statement's got the date wrong by a year, hasn't it?
What I can recollect is that probably the Sharia framework, the governance framework probably took a while, and when this Mr. Vasili's email came to me, I can't recollect. Sorry.
Well, just look at it's a relatively simple issue. If you look at your statement, that refers to an email that we just looked at. And we saw the date of the email was December 2017. But your statement says that it's December 2018. Now, is your statement right or not?
this was an email that Mr. Vasili had written to me, which was 1829, November 27th. November 27th, I responded November 27th.
Yes, I'm not asking you about paragraphs 32 and 33 at the moment. We'll come to that. I'm asking you about paragraph 34.
I'll go to 34, please.
Yeah. And you say, on 7 December 2018, you received the email that we looked at earlier, and we saw that it was dated 7 December 2017. So my question is a simple one, is have you got the date wrong in your statement?
I think it's referring, Judge, it's actually referring to two things. One is referring to the 2017 draft framework.
Well, are you saying there is another email dated the 7th of December 2018 sent to you, Mr. Akbar and Mr. Faselli, advising that a draft of the framework had been sent to Mr. Finucci and Mr. Gilbert, exactly 1 year after the email that we just looked at?
Well, I hold by this statement that I'm referring to in terms of the fact that the framework required, but I'm not...
Well, so you hold by the statement that that email was sent on December 2018, do you?
Is there a 2018 email?
Well,
1132? Can I?
Well, just go back again to page 1132. Now, isn't that the email you're referring to at paragraph 34 of your statement?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And so doesn't it follow that in paragraph 34 of your statement you've got the date wrong?
Sorry, Judge, I'm a bit confused on the dates.
Well, it's not difficult, Mr. Sheikh, with respect. The email that we've just looked at 1132 is the email that you're referring to on paragraph 34 of your statement. And the date is wrong by a year, isn't it?
It looks like it, that it's wrong by a year.
Yes,
Yeah,
well, all right. Well, doesn't it also follow then that the rest of paragraph 34, which refers to you being disappointed by reason of non-compliance with your email of 27 November 2018, that can't be right either, can it?
I think if we can just, if you could help me see when it looks like it that the first time the framework was circulated was 2017.
Yes.
That's the email that came to
Yes.
me. The draft must have been and then I probably responded when I heard that the draft has been sent to Mr. Finucci and Mr. Gilbert, and that's when I had written the email that I'm a bit surprised that this email has gone out in circulation without everybody's consent.
I understand
being there.
that, but that's not what I'm asking you about at the moment. On the previous paragraphs, you refer to an email, in particular paragraph 33, you refer to an email, thanks Shiraz, kindly coordinate primarily with Sohail. Now that's the email we looked at page 1829. So So go to 1829.
Sorry, what was the reference?
1829.
1829. Yes, please.
Just look at that. It's an email dated November 27, 2018, isn't it?
I think this one is specifically referring to the Sharia risk type.
Look,
And
it is the email referred to at paragraph 33 of your statement, isn't it?
Judge, what I'm saying is that maybe it's referring to two different things. One is referring to...
I'm not interested in what it's referring to at the moment, Mr. Sheikh. I'd be grateful if you'd just listen to my question and answer it. The email at page 1829 is the email referred to at paragraph 33 of your statement, isn't it? The text is identical.
It is, yeah.
All right. Now, that email was written on the 27th of November 2018, wasn't it? Just look at page 1829.
Yes, it says November 27th,
2018.
2018.
That's almost a year after the framework was circulated, isn't it?
Judge, but I think what he's referring to in this email in 2018 is talking about inclusion of a Sharia risk in that.
Can you just answer my question? That email to which you refer on paragraph 33 was written almost a year after the draft was circulated, wasn't it?
Yes.
And yet in paragraph 34, you say that you were frustrated because Mr. Mahmood had not complied with the instruction in your email when he sent the draft to Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Finucci. Don't you? Go to paragraph 34 of your statement. See there, or it says, you were surprised and frustrated that Mr. Mahmood had sent a draft of the framework to Mr. Finucci and Gilbert before finding it with me, which you had expressly asked him to do on 27 November 2018.
18.
Well, that just can't be right, can it? Because it was a year earlier.
Judge, I can't, I mean, if the dates are wrong, then it can't be that I've been sent an email and I'm referring it to that it's been sent out. But what's been sent, I will repeat, please don't mind, because I'm just referring to the content of the email. It's talking about a specific inclusion of a, and so that means that that email should be 2018.
Yes. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Bickford-Smith, but I just thought it'd be quicker if I did it.
Mr. Sheikh, it's very striking what's happened here. There is a clear chronological error in your statement, and it's taken you, I mean, the transcriber will have a note, but it has taken you many minutes of questioning by me and the judge to recognise that you have got your dates wrong here, haven't you? I put it to you, Mr. Sheikh, specifically, that you are doing everything you can to avoid making concessions in evidence. Is that correct?
That's, I disagree with that statement.
Have you had witness training or familiarisation before this hearing, Mr. Shaker? That's a yes or no question.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The position, if we pick things up from 1133, we see Mr. Akbar's reply to Mr. Mahmood. He has disagreements, and you are copied into this. This is sent over a holiday period. Do you remember reading this email?
Yes, I do.
And you say, I'm not going to go. You then give a lot of evidence at paragraphs 39 and all the way through till 42, 43 about the Sharia reporting line. You accept that the claimant's concerns about that reporting line were legitimate concerns for him to have.
I have all along maintained that Sharia reporting line has been brought up. It is something that we need to discuss. It is something that has now been brought up. We've been operating under a DFSA approval since 2010. It has now been brought up by Mr. Mahmood. It requires conversations, it requires discussions, and then with the requisite stakeholders, and properly actioned. There was at no time I disagreed that this should not be discussed or taken into account what Mr. Mahmood had pointed out.
You also say at paragraph 44, this is page 7790, the claimant had also made clear that he believed the Sharia department should report into him. You don't refer to any document, and the framework did not say that the reporting line should be to him, did it?
The reporting line was always thought to be to a control function. Mr. Mahmood, I don't quite recollect any conversation or any that he had that it should be reported to him, but it was mentioned that compliance is where this area should be reporting into.
Do you agree that reporting into compliance is not the same as reporting into the claimant personally?
At that point in time, we never discussed what the reporting lines, who the reporting lines would be. All along, we had conversations more about the conflict of interest and whether the conflict of interest exists in terms and subsequently the bank would decide where the reporting line should rest.
You say that this was the issue on which the framework became stuck. I put it to you, there was also the ORF. Mr. Akbar objected strongly to the ORF the claimant had put in place. Do you remember that?
ORF was a bank-wide setup. It was not Mr. Sohail Akbar. The execution and implementation was the COO's responsibility. The framework, I wanted the framework to have a reference to the observations of Mr. Mahmood and not hold the framework for that reason, and then and circulate the framework so that it could be approved or implemented. And subsequently, what I recollect, the framework was circulated with a comment that everybody had agreed on.
At paragraph 45, you refer to, this is page 7790, you refer to numerous meetings with the claimant. So first of all, there were 6 or 7 hours of meetings concerning this issue between the end of 17 and...
As a one meeting or collective meetings?
Collectively.
It was an important document and it required a lot of deliberations. But on this particular aspect, Mr. Mahmood was pretty firm that he wanted this aspect to be there in the framework, which I said that, you know, maybe you can put it there, put a comment there, but whether there was a real conflict of interest or not, that requires a bit of a more review, and then we will address that.
And in those meetings, the claimant was shouted at by Mr. Akbar. Do you agree?
By who?
Mr. Akbar.
That's incorrect. There could have been voices may have raised, but I don't recollect or recall any shouting going on.
The claimant was shouted at by Ahsan Ali, correct?
When you say shouting, I don't quite recall. There could have been a professional disagreement. The tone could have been higher, but shouting is not. I recall or recollect.
He was also shouted at by Kuram Hilal and Ali Alawala. You disagree or agree with that?
I disagree.
Page, the true position is that in the unit, compliance and legal were shouted at in meetings by members of the GIB management team, to your knowledge, correct?
Incorrect.
Can I ask you to go to page 2708?
Yes, please.
At the very top of that, this is Mr. Vaselli talking about a different sequence of events. What happened was countless meetings in which I was standing there at second box down, standing there on my own, 5 or 6 Islamic banking people, you know that's not fair. That was the sort of ganging up type of strategy that now that they don't do anymore with, that's with Mr. Vaselli, because I refuse to attend these meetings. This experience Mr. Vaselli has of being ganged up on by Islamic banking management is exactly what happened to the claimant at the end of 2017, start of 2018. Do you agree or disagree?
I disagree with that. We have regular meetings. Everybody's there. They're all senior managing director level people. There could be a difference of opinion, but ganging up is a very. I've never seen anybody ganging up against anybody. And if Mr. Vaselli has that opinion, I can't really say for him why he felt that, but I don't recall any meetings that I've chaired where there could be a difference of opinion, and that's where I always used to moderate and come in and manage these meetings.
And just to complete this, a couple of boxes up on page 2707, the end of, you can read the whole box, but it's the third box up from the bottom. Mr. Vaselli had refused a governing law clause, and then he says that what followed from that was the number of meetings, shouting and pressure. So he's also referring to people shouting at him.
Where is this on the page?
2707,
Yes.
3 boxes up, last line of the box. Box beginning, so we had a big issue.
Thank you. Have you got that, Mr.
This is the 2707.
2707?
Box beginning, so we had a big issue. It's 3 boxes up from the bottom.
Yeah. There is, Councillor, there is a process that the bank has. Now, if the legal counsel responsible for Islamic has a different view, there are always levels that we have for issues to be escalated. I don't know what Mr. Vasili is referring to here, but if there is a change of law and a client is asking for it, there are, Mr. Vasili may have had an opinion, but maybe we were in a consortium transaction, maybe other banks may have agreed to it, so I don't have enough knowledge as to what he's referring to here.
Mr. Sheikh, the question you were asked was a really simple one, and that was whether you are aware of meetings at which there was shouting and pressure.
No, they were not.
Page 2027. This is an email, to put this in context, 2026. This is an email from an ER employee called Aziza Dada to Mr. Nakvi, who works in the unit, correct?
I don't know who Mr. Muhammad Ali Naqvi is maybe our relationship manager. That is probably Mr. Naqvi. Yes, please.
Well, it says here on 2027, you are a director CBC, very bottom 2026, sorry. You said that you were a director CBCIB for Islamic banking
Mr.
reporting.
Sanali. Okay,
Yes.
Now I get it. Yeah, Mr. Muhammad
This
Ali.
is someone working in the Dubai office. We can see that a few lines down in 2027. He moved to Islamic banking in Pakistan in 2014 and to Dubai in 2017. Now that was after you had taken over the unit, correct?
That's correct.
And he refers to, well, you could read down, but the specific bit I want to take you to is the second last dash. You said that employees within Islamic could be harsh with each other. You said that to a certain extent there is a fear culture within the team. You clarified that a senior manager in the team will come to the floor and shout and give feedback to certain individuals on the open floor.
So this is Ms. Dada recording Mr. Naqvi's statement.
Do you accept that there was senior managers shouting on the floor area of the Islamic banking unit, yes or no?
I don't accept that. There could have been an odd incident that may have happened, but I don't accept that that was the culture that we had, or the ways of working we had.
Well, I put it to you that it was ingrained within Islamic banking. Can you go to 971, please?
971.
971.
Are you going to put Mr. Naqvi's version of his conversation with Mr. Dada, the witness, or not? Because Mr. Naqvi didn't accept Ms. Dada's version, did he? I mean, it's up to you if you don't want to.
No, I should do. The problem is I've just moved pages. What page is your on?
Page 2026.
2026. I put it to you, well, I think this is the way to do it. I put it to you that as a matter of fact, there was shouting on the floor of Islamic banking.
I disagree.
And for good order, because I think you may want to comment on this, Mr. Naqvi amends it. He amends the note. Well, he rewrites it above. So you may want to look at that at 2026 and see
So
if
I
there-
move away from 971?
No, yes. Go
Okay.
to 2026. I think this is actually important, and ultimately, I think it will save time.
Yes, please.
2026. Mr. Nakvi rewrites this. He does his own summary.
So I read the last paragraph, last
Yeah.
areas of improvement, or where?
Yes, I think
Yes.
that would be sufficient.
What he says there is, at times there are conversations, remarks by leaders during meetings and or on the floor which could make employees feel intimidated. Would you accept that is a fair summary?
I don't think the culture was intimidation or anything to belittle or to push back. There could be a difference of opinion on issues which are professionally handled, but there were times that there were heated up arguments, but this is Mr. Naqvi's opinion.
Page 971. You may want to go to 970 to give you context. This is an email chain about, originally about Islamic banking in Hong Kong. It becomes an email chain about an interaction the claimant has with someone in Hong Kong compliance. The reason I'm taking you to this is as follows. Mr. Phoebe, you know, is a senior compliance officer within the bank, correct?
That's correct.
And his assessment at the top of 971 is that Islamic are a tough crowd, which I know from experience. And I put it to you that the Islamic banking unit was a tough environment, and that was known within the bank's management, correct?
What do you mean by tough environment?
Well, for example, an environment where you have people shouting at people in meetings and trying to persuade compliance functions to change their mind by that method.
I've already responded that there could be an odd incident where, and it happens where you're working 12, 14 hours a day, there could be an odd incident of somebody raising their voice, but it's not a culture or something that we had in Islamic. Now, if there were pressures, if there were meeting deadlines or explaining Islamic point of view, because again, these are subject matter experts where the point of views could be different when you're explaining things to people, but I don't think there was any disrespect or anything going on as a norm on the platform, or even in any of the offices that we had overseas.
Put it to you that in the meetings which you were present in, late 17, particularly early 18 we're looking at, about this framework document, the claimant was treated in an extremely unprofessional and intimidatory manner.
Absolutely incorrect.
And his competence was belittled, correct?
Absolutely incorrect. The claimant may have an opinion about certain his views about the document or anything. So if the other side is giving a view, there's a conversation going on. That does not mean that there was a shouting match going on or that was the norm.
And when you say that it was the claimant who was the most confrontational and aggressive person in these discussions, that is false, is it not?
That's correct in the sense that each time there was a conversation, the claimant had his views, and at times the claimant was not aware of the background about a lot of issues that used to come up. So it used to take us a while to explain to Mr. Mahmood on a lot of issues. Then he had his own views, and then he was not ready to listen to other views, but he was pretty adamant in communicating what he felt was the right thing to do. And there were a lot of conversations that used to go on like this to make him agree or get his buy-in to ensure that we run the business smoothly.
Then it's a minor point, but I think I must put it. You say that it was paragraph 50 at 7791, eventually approved by group compliance, although I cannot recall exactly when. What actually happened was there's actually no document in which an approved version of this was agreed and signed off by someone in compliance. It was just a document that was implemented in part as matters went along. Is that correct?
You talk about the framework?
Yes.
Yes, I think framework was more of a reference document. I don't quite recollect, but it didn't really require anybody's sign-off. It was more of a playbook that we had to refer to, just like we had the compliance playbook, we had the legal playbook, we had the compliance playbook, which was a reference point. So we must have followed the bank's process that whether a formal sign-off is required or not, but this is how we proceeded.
Now you then refer to events in 2020, that's paragraph 51, we'll come back to that. The 365 feedback we have dealt with. Paragraph 56 of your statement is on page 7793. And you set out one of the two anonymous complaints raised against the claimant. You say at paragraph 57, I did not send the email and I do not know who did. Can I just put this beyond doubt? Is it your evidence that you did not have any role in the drafting of that email?
Absolutely correct.
Is it your evidence that you were not sent any draft of that email by anyone before it was sent to the group?
Which email?
The one that you quote above.
I have nothing to do with that email. I had nothing to do with it.
Now this email is dated the 30th of January. Is it your evidence that, well, let me ask this question. Did you know, as of the 30th of January, that there were going to be complaints made about the claimant?
January 2019?
Yes.
Complaints made?
About the claimant?
I could sense it, that people were unhappy. I could sense that the relationship between Mr. Mahmood was, very reserved. People were not very happy in how things were conducted. But other than that, I was not aware that. Obviously, you could sense that if people are unhappy, they may raise issues. But other than that, I was not aware.
I put it to you that the position was that by no later than the 27th of January 2019, you knew that there was going to be a grievance against the claimant.
What date was that?
27th of January 2019.
Well, I don't know what date was, but I came to know through the normal Speak Up and HR process that there was an investigation going on certain on grievances. But whatever that date was, that was post the investigation as it was conducted.
No, because on 7803, paragraph 90, a long way down your statement, you say on the 16th of June, I received an email from Aziza Dada.
The Yes, please.
And then you-
7803.
7803, paragraph 90.
Paragraph.
9090.
Yeah. That's what I'm. Yeah.
That's in June, correct?
June 19.
Is it your evidence that was the first you were aware of this, or were you aware of it earlier, the investigation?
Well, formally, I was advised by.
But when did you know? Let's take this in stages. When did you know that there was an investigation going on?
Formally, at the date that I've said, 16th of June 2019.
Mr. Sheikh, you've used the word formally in two successive answers. You know that the question is, when did you know that there was an investigation
On June
going
16, 2019.
on? When did you know that there had been grievances raised against the claimant?
On June 16, 2019.
You knew on the 27th of January that grievances were going to be raised, correct?
On what date, please?
27th January 2019. That is 5 months earlier.
Look, as I said, the environment and the unhappiness that was prevailing normally in a business environment, when people are unhappy, when people feel that they are mistreated, it's natural that people speak up. But I was never aware that who's going to speak up, who's going to say what, because overall, a lot of people were unhappy that the kind of relationship they had with Mr. Mahmood. So I was not aware of who's going to speak up or who actually, made that complaint.
Page 1898, please. Mr. Long sends you an email. Considering what you mentioned on Sunday, do we go ahead with this meeting? We would not be able to discuss the grievance, as HR treats such cases as confidential while they are following up. You reply, Shiraz had asked for this meeting earlier, grievance issue came in later. So the position is that as of the 29th of January, which is the Tuesday, you knew that there was going to be a grievance against the claimant, didn't you?
Which grievance are we talking about here? I mean, this is his email, which is Mr. Sohail Akbar's email also here, compliance engagement, and I put 1898. Yeah?
And we see then at 1900.
1900.
On the 28th of January, an email from Jack James, Devil's Advocate 222016 @gmail.com. Speak up on Shiraz Mahmood, whose employee number is then given.
I've never seen this email before, unless it was part of the documents.
And this is the email that describes the claimant as a cop of the colonial era, correct? You can see that in actually no, I retract that question, it's not. This is the one that talks about him being an English scholar and so on. And then a list of people who should be investigated. At the end it says, I request this investigation to be taken up on priority, and the following people may be spoken to verify the above. Speaking up in the bank may not be very easy. People should be given confidence to speak up and say the truth. His ugly behaviour is common knowledge on the floor, spoken about, everyone detests it. People may not have the courage. Then there's a list of 13 names of people who are listed as potential support witnesses, and you're one of them. Again, I need to be clear about this. You have, I believe, covered this in your statement. We then have the email at 1904, the 30th of January.
So I move away from 1900 now?
Yes, and you go to 1904.
Yes, please.
And we say it takes, you see this speaking up. No, we don't know who this is from. Well, sorry, I retract. I want that stricken from the record. The email address here is blank. That's a correction for the transcript. And this refers to the claimant considering himself a cop of the colonial areas above the law, etc. Your evidence is this also is an email you're unaware of, correct?
That's correct.
Now, there are then grievances from Geeta Neelakantan and Fatima Yusuf. Were you aware of those grievances before June 2019?
Well, when HR advised me about these grievances, that's when I was aware of that there were grievances. In fact, even at that time, I was not aware from who the grievances were from.
And when you say HR, who within the HR/ER function was it who told you about this?
I think it was Ms. Tabara, or I don't. Yeah, it was. I think probably Ms. Tabara, or there was a lady before that who was also working for ER. So I think it was Ms. Tabara. Yeah, that's correct.
Was it Ms. Al-Najjar?
Ms. Who?
Al-Najjar?
No. Ms. Al-Najjar has nothing to do with that. She was part of the SIS, about the committee, but I think it was Ms. Tabara who had advised me, who had spoken to me.
Now, going back to the email at 1898, we've looked at your witness statement at 780. So I just want you to be clear. You're familiar with this email. The judge is familiar with this email. I now need to go to 7803, paragraph 90, June 19. We see that there is no reference in your statement to the email at 1898, and there is no reference in your statement to you being aware, as of the end of January 2019, that a grievance was going to be raised against the claimant, correct?
Can you please ask the question again?
There is nothing in your statement about you being aware of this grievance in January 2019, is there?
Well, as I said, it was not Tabara, Aziza Dada or Tabara, who had actually advised me about these investigations.
The position is that you are not being candid with this court about what you knew about these grievances coming in against the claimant, are you?
I think it is incorrect statement. Whatever facts that you're asking me, I'm responding them to you based on the evidence, my submission that I had made.
I put it to you that you knew that there were going to be grievances coming in against the claimant.
Sorry, that's incorrect. As I said, as a manager, because I sit in the same floor, I manage. There were multiple issues going on. As I said, that there was people who were unhappy in a situation like this. It's but natural that people do speak up, but I did not know who's going to speak up and who will not. But it's when people are unhappy, that's why we try to create an environment where things continue to move without any issues.
Mr. Sheikh, do you have 1898 in front of you?
Which one?
1898.
1898. Yes, please, I do.
You see there's an email from Mr. Long to you sent on Tuesday, January the 29th. You see that?
Yes, 1898. And
1898, second email down from Adam Long to you, sent on the 29th of January 2019. You got that one?
yes, I do.
Now, the email starts, considering what you mentioned on Sunday. So just pausing there, you may have no recollection of it, but do you accept that it's likely that there was a conversation between you and Mr. Long the previous Sunday, that is the 27th of January?
Now that I'm reading it, Mr. Long may have mentioned about a grievance, but I was neither aware nor I recollect any conversation about the grievance.
But
It could have.
you see that the email goes on, we would not be able to discuss the grievance, as HRA treats such cases as confidential. Now, do you recall any discussion about the grievance?
I don't recall.
You're saying that there was no discussion?
I did not have any discussion with Mr. Long about any grievance that, or who made the grievance, or what the contents of the grievance was. If he had made mention of a grievance that had come up, I don't quite recall or recollect.
Thank you.
And Mr. Long's email says, considering what you mentioned on Sunday, do we go ahead with this meeting? So I put it to you that it was you who mentioned to Mr. Long that there was going to be a grievance.
I don't know what I mentioned. Was it? It was more maybe compliance engagement. Considering what you mentioned on Sunday, do we go ahead with this meeting? I don't quite recollect or recall what was the reference of. Is there a following?
No, because in your email above, you say, hi, Shiraz had asked for this meeting earlier. Now, the words this meeting, we go down to 189. Sorry, it's at the bottom of this page. It's a meeting invite sent on the 23rd of January. The meeting is to take place on the 29th of January. The subject of the meeting is to be compliance engagement. The attendees at that meeting, I put it to you, are you, Mr. Akbar, Mr. Mahmood, Mr. Long, and Janine Yaboot. So there is you agree.
Sorry, who's the last one?
Janine Yaboot.
Okay.
So these are people who are going to be attending a meeting on Tuesday, January the 29th, about compliance engagement in your office. Do you have any recollection of that meeting being scheduled for that date?
If the subject says client engagement,
Compliance engagement.
So if the subject says compliance engagement, I presume that there must have been some issues that had to be discussed to ensure that if there are any gaps, if there are any things that we may at that point in time had been confronted with, we want everybody to sit together and talk about it.
And Mr. Long is saying, considering what you mentioned on Sunday, do we go ahead with that compliance
I
engagement?
don't quite recollect, Councillor, that what I was referring to from what I had discussed with him on Sunday.
It's apparent from this email that you're the one who's told him about the grievance, correct? Because if you look at the top of the page, it says Shiraz has asked for this meeting earlier. Grievance issue came in later. So it's you who is telling Mr. Long about the grievance, not the other way round, correct?
Grievance issue came in later. Well, I can't really recollect or recall if Shiraz had asked for a meeting on compliance engagement. The meeting was probably being set up for that purpose. The grievance issue came in later. I can't recollect or recall what was this referring to. But as I said...
Sorry, do you accept, looking at the terms of your email on the 29th of January, do you accept that you were then aware that there was a grievance issue relating to Mr. Mahmood.
Judge, from the email, if it is referring to, because there were multiple grievances, there were grievances from before, there were other issues going on. I don't know what grievance this is referring to, but not specifically to the grievance that we were just talking about that we had seen the documents on. So I'm not aware of which grievance it is being referred to. Or it could be a grievance that somebody may have spoken to me, or I may have referred to, or I don't know, I don't quite recollect what grievance this is being talked about. And that also on a document which is from Sohail Akbar and then going into Mr. Adam and all that.
Mr. Sheikh, it's not a coincidence, is it, that you are referring to a grievance issue coming in later on the 29th of January, and then we see 4 grievances later. We see an anonymous email, a second anonymous email, and then 2 named complaints. It is not credible that this is a coincidence, is it?
As I said earlier, I'm not aware of where the grievances came from. I'm not aware of who wrote those grievances. And as I said earlier also, I have nothing to do with what the Speak Up channel or who the people were.
And the true position, this is now 6 weeks at most after this is what? When would P3s normally be completed? November, December, correct? For P3 normally?
P3 submissions are made, conversations are happened during the last quarter. Ratings are assigned depending on whether we are, I think yes, the last quarter, the whole of last quarter, we do that.
So the position is, would you agree that what has happened is we've just had the claimant assessed down on the basis of his feedback against Mr. Akbar. Do you agree with that?
As I said, that the line manager assesses, and I don't know at this date whether a final rating was given. I don't quite recollect what dates were the ratings assigned. It normally as I said, I don't recollect what ratings and what dates the ratings were assigned.
And we now see the claimant scheduling or seeking a meeting about compliance engagement. You've accurately summarised the reason why the claimant was calling for a meeting about compliance engagement was that there remained, in his mind, an issue about the relationship between compliance and legal and the business unit, correct?
Well, I can't say on behalf of the claimant what he thought, why he sought this meeting. This is all along been happening. One of the other things that were going concurrently was that I had involved Mr. Long, which was Mr. Mahmood's supervisor, and I had also involved Mr. Andrew Dixon, who was Mr. Vasili's supervisor, to draft a engagement document, because to further improve the collaboration between the functions and the businesses. So I can't really say client engagement, compliance engagement, what I can't recollect at this point in time what this referred to, but engagement was a word that we were using to ensure that whatever issues are coming up from compliance, from legal, whatever issues are coming from within the businesses, they are addressed in a proper way. And this is why I sought senior level support from Singapore and also from Dubai to have everybody on the same page. So this client compliance engagement, I can't recollect or recall what this specifically referred to.
The next line of questions is about 10-15 minutes, Your Honour, so
Yes, it's a convenient time. We'll adjourn until 2 p.m. Same rules apply, Mr. Sheikh. You're not to talk to anybody during the break. Just mind your own business, go and get a bite to eat, and
Thank
be back
you.
here a little bit before 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Court will adjourn.
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
Said it, please.
Judge, if you allow me, I want to make a clarification, please.
Yes, please.
When we said about the first time when I knew about the speak-ups,
Yes.
I mentioned Ms. Tabara's name, but it is Aziza Dada.
Right.
That was the
Okay.
email that I got from Ms. Dada.
Right.
Then
Thank
Ms.
you.
Tabara.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford-Smith.
You said before lunch that you sensed that people in the Global Islamic Bank weren't happy with the claimant, correct?
Well, initially it was quite okay. Things were working quite well, but with time there were issues that started to come up, and across not just within GIB but even across various countries that we were operating in. There were times that there was difference of opinion, and there was, I mean, I had to deal with a lot of issues that used to come up on my desk.
Do you accept that by January 2019, the claimant's accent was regularly being mocked in meetings?
I have never come across any meeting where the accent was mocked.
He would, for example, be asked to repeat himself on the apparent basis that he couldn't be understood, correct?
I can't recall if the individual who Mr. Mahmood was speaking to did not understand and it was requested to repeat, but not in any other manner that from an accent or a mocking of the accent.
And you accept that do you accept that in meetings he would be spoken to very rudely by Mr. Akbar?
Barring a few incidents where there was a difference of opinion, I did not recall a rude behavior being adopted by any members of the senior management team of GIB, including Mr. Akbar or even Mr. Mahmood.
And Mr. Hilal?
As I said, there could have been a difference of opinion where the voices may have raised, but nothing which was a norm or a behavior that was carried on.
Mr. Arsan Ali?
As I said, the same goes for the entire management of GIB.
Do you accept that all of the individuals we're talking about are Pakistani nationals, correct?
With the exception of Mr. Ahsan Ali. Mr. Ahsan Ali is an Indian national, and also Mr. Akbar, while his origins are from Pakistan, he is a Canadian national, to the best of my knowledge.
And do you accept that the hostility to the claimant was caused in part by tensions which were influenced by the following: that there was someone here who had been born in Pakistan but who identified as British.
First of all, I never experienced any kind of hostility in my tenure as a CEO. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't ever recall or even got a sense that Mr. Mahmood's nationality or his origins had anything to do with any conversations that went around within the GIP business.
It can't now be any surprise to you to see that the claimant was described as a cop of the colonial era. Can it?
No, I mean, when I hear this statement, as I said, I read it for the first time when when it was brought to my notice, but I don't think I mean, I don't know why this statement was said by anybody who said it.
Page 1906, which we've been to as well, about just after halfway down the page, there's a hole punch mark you'll see, and then underneath that we see he also, just above that, he was always opposed and challenged everything I do or say. Moreover, he is always belittling my professional something, I think it's competence, and there's a reference to him considering himself as an English scholar.
So
again,
the paragraph is?
It's the one that's amputated. You can see it on page 906 around the place at the first hole punch. Sorry, second hole punch.
Second hole punch, okay. So the second hole punch starts with it also carries a habit of
Just a paragraph above that.
Here's what it. Well, as I said, you have to ask the person who wrote that. I can't really comment on this.
Going to January, we have Geeta Neelakantan and Fatima Yusuf who bring grievances. These are at 1925. It's a follow-up email with a grievance. So just we see bullet points there: untruthful, targeting, unethical, unprofessional behaviour.
That's from Geeta,
yes.
not Fatima.
And sorry, didn't I say? Sorry,
sorry,
that's Geeta. Yes. Again, same questions. Had you seen this grievance before it went in?
No,
And your evidence is you didn't become aware of it until June, correct?
that's correct.
1940. So 1940 is to give you the top and tail, and here we go into Fatima Yusuf's grievance. Now, we've now seen 2 anonymous grievances and 2 grievances from these individuals. You must have known that there were going to be a set of grievances against